Hey everyone, Parker here. If we haven't had the chance to meet, I am the instructional designer here at MCAT. Just a quick visual introduction. I am a white 30-something non-binary person that uses they, them pronouns. A very cool, very short haircut that is unfortunately currently hidden beneath my green knit cap. And I have thin, circular, wire frame glasses on. I'm wearing a short sleeve black t-shirt, and you can kind of see my abstract black ink tattoo on my right arm. I'm recording this from my Minneapolis apartment, so behind me you kind of see a series of white walls and hallways. I want to take some time to introduce our Pedagogy in Practice series. Our purpose in creating this series was to bring light to some of the amazing work that is being done at MCAT. Now, this first video, we're chatting with Calee Cecconi, who currently teaches in the MA Graphic and Web Design program. So Calee shares some incredible insight into how she goes about generating a sense of community in her online course, Experimental Interaction. But before we jump into the conversation, I want to point out a few things. So in the video description, you'll notice that this video is bookmarked, allowing you to quickly move between the different sections. Easy to find stuff as quickly as you'd want to. Now, you'll also find any resources mentioned throughout our conversation linked in the description as well. But we're also providing an edited transcript as a Google Doc. Finally, we absolutely would love to hear from you. If you want to chat about how you approach teaching and learning in a virtual space, please let us know. Send us an email at online@mcat.edu or fill out the form, again, linked in the description. All right, now that's out of the way, let's check in with Calee.
Hi, Calee.
Hi,
Thank
Parker.
you for offering to come in, chat with us. I was wondering, before we kind of jump into the meat of the interview proper, I was wondering if you wouldn't mind giving us a brief visual introduction, and then if you could just generally introduce yourself, courses you teach, that kind of thing.
Sure. So my name is Calee Cecconi. I am a 30-something non-binary woman, and I use she, they pronouns. I have long, curly, blonde hair, and I'm a very short person. So professionally, I am what I like to call a DIY academic, meaning that I work at a lot of institutions. And I'm a graphic designer, multimedia artist, and also an aspiring bass player. So at this semester, what I'm doing at MCAT is I'm teaching the experimental interaction course for the online graphic and web design program. Additionally, I work at Minnesota State University Mankato full-time, and I'm also teaching upper-level interactive and web design and user experience courses.
Very cool. Can you tell us just a little bit about experimental interaction and what that course is like at MCAT?
Yeah, I really embrace the idea of experimental, especially with the way that I like to have students approach this course. So they may have come out of coding courses, really wanting to get a very specific outcome, like what does their web page look like? How does it respond across different screens? But for this class, it's very experimental in that they're creating artwork with code. And so they're learning all sorts of different things from JavaScript to specific JavaScript libraries. And then this semester we'll be working a little bit with augmented reality. And then I asked them to prototype different interactive things.
Super cool. And I know this is, I kind of have the unfair advantage here because I've worked with you so much on this course. I know that this is a totally online course. I know that you have a very strong asynchronous component and you kind of have a unique meeting schedule with the students. Do you mind telling us just a little bit about what that check-in with your students look like?
Yeah, so we have like an every other week I'm asynchronous all the time, except for our weekly meetings, which every other week we have a critique, which is your traditional, everybody shows what they're working on and it responds to each other's work. And then on the off weeks, I have what's called like a group meeting session where we just brainstorm, check in, kind of hang out sometimes. It depends on what the students are needing. So the first semester I taught this class, that was attended by like a couple of students regularly every couple of weeks just to check in, see where they were at, have some more critique. When I taught it over the summer, those were generally used for like class hangout time and just general questions about things that they were working on in and out of class. So who knows what it'll be this semester? It could be probably a combination of both of those things.
Very cool. And that's something that I think you have said that students really appreciate too, kind of that like off week co-working informal get together
Yeah.
time where you're able to really begin to like build a sense of community and a sense of who your classmates are. Do you find that you
Mhm.
have pretty good attendance during the co-working session? Do you find that students kind of gravitate towards it, or what has the general response been?
Well, I think the first semester I taught it, it was lower attendance, but then you and I worked together and rebranded it as like this co-working session because it used to just be like an optional check-in, but having rebranded it as a co-working kind of like fun space where you can work on whatever you want to and have a little bit of guidance, that's really helped. So over the summer, it was almost 100% attendance every week.
Oh, cool. Very cool. That's
Mhm.
always like really nice to hear. I know I kind of like sidetracked us because I always like talking about like the global aspects of your course.
Mhm.
And because this is, I really do want to focus on the first week tips that you might have. I want to ask, I know you've taught online kind of several times, and I'm sure you probably have kind of like a playlist or a to-do list or like a guidebook or something that you always kind of go through before the start of the semester. So kind of like the first couple of days leading up to the beginning of the term, what's on your to-do list? What are kind of the things that you know you want to check off to just begin to welcome students into the space that you've created?
Yeah, so going into the first week of class, before the students have gotten the chance to log in, there are some things I absolutely need to wrap up and make sure that they are fully correct because first impressions I've found, especially with undergraduate students, graduate students seem to be a little bit more forgiving. They understand that you're a person. But what I found is undergraduate students, if they see a mistake, they like somehow check out a little bit. So I try to go through everything. And what I love about working with MCAT is I have an instructional designer that I can work with that you will double check pretty much everything. Obviously, you won't get all of my mistakes, but if I have an assignment deadline wrong, it's always checked. So I go through, make sure for sure everything that's public. So the first 3 to 4 weeks of classes are
Mhm.
always published ahead of time. All of those things are absolutely perfect. I have my videos edited, any additional content up. And then I always have an icebreaker question, which is like an additional 5 points or whatever the first week of class. I usually like to have my response up by that before classes start. So the one that I've been using that I find generates a lot of discussion and kind of starts to form that sense of community is what's on your turntable. And
Mm-hmm.
that's like, I listen to vinyl, I collect vinyl, I am a music nerd. So I really love hearing what my students are into. And if they're not into music, I give them the option to tell me about a podcast or a TV
Sure.
show or some piece of media that they really enjoy. And then the second half of that question is, how does that apply to you in your art design practice? So they get to tell me a little bit about themselves through their music taste. And then the other question I'm asking the first week is that I think is important for classes that sometimes have like a coding class, you need to have a certain level of
Mm-hmm.
skill when you get into it. And I have an idea of what students should have based on what they've taken previously, but sometimes that's not always the case. So I always like to ask them what their comfort level is coming into this class. And so then that gives me an idea personally about each student, what to expect from them and kind of how to navigate giving them feedback and how to help them with the course. And so those conversations, once the class is live, that first week, I really pay attention to those conversations. Because it really changes my approach as to how I work with some of those students. So if students are not receptive overall to my really fun and lighthearted what's on your turntable question, then I kind of adjust my teaching style for that. So obviously I'll have a lot of my video content created, but if there's new content that I need to create, then I will adjust my more lighthearted, fun style to that group of students. And then same with if I get a bunch of students that say like, oh, I am really uncomfortable with code. I didn't do very well in the web design class. I have no idea what I'm doing. Then I will provide those students with some extra guidance and maybe tweak our projects a little bit to be more appropriate for the class.
The HTML, the CSS, the JavaScript, the P5.js. who did you reach out to, or maybe what was your process for contacting other instructors that maybe you didn't know who were also in the program to get a sense of what you could include?
That's a really good question. How did I come up with that document or the set of documents?
Mhm.
Well, first I work really closely with the director of that program, so Leif Smith. So yeah, I worked with our program director to come up with the skills that students should have learned in the previous courses. So what was expected of them coming into my class. And then besides having those very base knowledge things, what do I need them to know specifically for projects? So they don't need to know everything HTML and CSS wise. They didn't
Sure.
need to know any. They were supposed to have taken some P5JS in one of their courses, but they didn't need to know a ton of it coming in. But I put together that reference in case they had completely forgotten everything that they learned. So yeah, it was based on that. And then I worked with, I think we had a town hall meeting with some of the other instructors as well. And I asked a couple of questions in that class because we had somebody who taught the UX class and the programming for the web class. And
Oh, perfect.
yeah, it was more about like, what are you teaching this semester? What should I expect from students in future semesters? So it's really useful, I think, to reach out and at least talk to the director of your program, especially if you're an adjunct and you don't know anybody else.
Absolutely. And I love this kind of like dual approach that you're taking of like not only what are the fundamental skill sets that students are coming into my class with, but taking a critical look at the projects that you're asking students to do, and identifying those points where like, oh, maybe this, could use some additional tutorials if you haven't done coding in a while, or if you've never done, you said that you're working on AR. You've never done AR, here are some basic tutorials for that. I absolutely love that. And I think that that's kind of the benefit of bringing Google into your Canvas classroom, kind of creating these collaborative Google Docs where it's not only you who takes ownership of kind of curating tutorials and videos and readings and all that artist samples, but also you're giving the option to your students to begin bringing in their own resources and tutorials and examples. I feel like that gives a really powerful sense of owning your own learning and a powerful sense of like empowerment of like, yes, I know what I'm doing, to the point where I can curate my own resources and share with people. I know that we've turned your experimental interaction course into an example course in Canvas, so I'll definitely drop the link to the course in the description or somewhere in this video cast so that people can kind of take a look at some of the design that has gone into just making sure that first week and etc. the other weeks that follow are kind of ready for students to interact with. Something that I know that I say this all the time. I feel like I'm like in the Calee Cecconi fan club or something. But something that I really love about working with you and kind of talking with you about as we get together and chat about your course is how you incorporate student feedback into your courses on this ongoing, constantly evolving basis. It's not just something that you wait for the end of the term for evaluations from students, but it seems like it's an almost weekly flow that you've established. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about both how you kind of get that feedback from students and how you begin to incorporate that into the course or let them know that like, I take what you are sharing with me seriously and I'm going to modify my teaching.
Yeah, that is exactly, I like how you put that. I take what you were saying seriously and I will be modifying this. Some of the feedback obviously isn't going to work to be input in at the same time that I'm getting the feedback. But there are a few different ways that I collect the feedback. And one, I think, is something that if people aren't already doing this, just using the survey tools. So we have Google Forms. I think at least our program has like a survey that's pre-populated that we typically send out the first couple of weeks of class. You could use that, make a copy of it, modify it, and send it out at other points in class. For this particular course, I don't do that except for once because I have such a small group. It seems like overkill to survey them a bunch because I think I usually have like 5 students. And so for me, I use that synchronous meeting to ask them questions. So that's part of the deal, is like they're asking me questions about the work, but then I'm asking them like, okay, beyond what don't you know, or what are you not understanding about this assignment? If they have issues, if 3 of 5 of them are not understanding the assignment, then I ask, okay, well, how could I have worded this better to help you understand this? Or how could I have made this assignment slightly different to fit what you were expecting from the assignment? And so I'll collect what the students are saying about that. And then if there's something I can do immediately to make that change. So for instance, if there's a wording issue and students are like, oh, if you worded it this way, we would have understood what you were talking about in the first place.
Sure.
Since all of my project statements are in Google Docs, I can quickly reword that, and then it makes sense to students moving forward. So that's one of the ways that I do it. And then when I'm doing feedback for any assignment that students have turned in, usually I ask them questions. And so if somebody did work that seems a little off for them, I will always drop in with a question and say, hey, just checking in. This wasn't typical for you, but maybe something's going on, or you're having an off week, or maybe you have more questions, just shoot me an email. And usually students will send me an email and say like, oh no, I got really caught up with work or other projects, or I have some other stuff going on. But every once in a while, it's like, I really don't know what I'm doing. And that didn't come out in any other way. So I think to sum all of that up, asking questions is the biggest way to get feedback. And I think with a bigger class, so the classes that I teach at Minnesota State Mankato, those are 25 students. It would be really hard to incorporate everybody's feedback all the time. With undergraduates, it's more of like, okay, I'm getting a lot of feedback. Some of these things, like if I have a mistake, for instance, that can be fixed, which is really nice when I have students that point out mistakes.
Sure.
But a lot of it, it's like, oh, hey, I see you had questions about this. It's a little bit too late to include this feedback this semester for our class, but I will definitely look at this and incorporate it for the following semester. So it's just acknowledging that, like, I appreciate that you gave me the feedback, because I do also think, again, difference between graduate and undergraduate students. Graduate students are more likely to tell you when something's weird or something's wrong, and undergrads don't. And so a lot of the times when I get feedback from undergraduates, even though I've asked questions, I'll get it like after a project is done, and then they'll say like, oh, I had all of these questions and these problems. And it's like, well, I already asked, but I'll thank you for the feedback, and I will definitely incorporate this into next semester if it's appropriate. Gotcha. But and then the other thing that I've done as far as feedback goes, I haven't done this for this experimental interaction class, but I may do it this semester. I'm kind of deciding on it. For my undergraduate class, I really like, because I have that reference document for undergraduates, to get them to give me references and give each other references. Kind of have to poke them along a little bit. And so I've given them 5 points extra credit, so they can submit. If they submit a reference that's a vetted reference and it relates to the class and would be helpful for other students, they get 5 points extra credit. And if it's a good reference, I drop it right in that document. So it's a way to remind them that they're valued in the class. And I think that's really useful.
Absolutely. And I love that, I love the honesty in the approach of like, well, I can't change this right now, but I really do value that you're giving me this feedback, and it's going to help make the next time that I teach this really even that much better for other students who kind of join in. Do you have any advice for kind of somebody who might be jumping into online asynchronous or online synchronous courses for the first time? Somebody who might be kind of beginning to jump into having a virtual interaction with students.
This is going to sound like a shameless plug for online learning, but it's absolutely true.
Totally
really, yeah, this was not, you didn't ask for this, but listen to the online learning folks. And I've definitely experienced this. So this last fall semester was the first time I was teaching anywhere full time. And I taught 3 courses online asynchronous with more students than I've ever had before. And I did not have an instructional designer to help build those courses or to help pre-flight some of those issues. And so previously in our discussion, we talked about eliciting feedback from students, and sometimes they'll tell me about a mistake. Oh boy, I had so many emails that first week. So really, all of the pieces that you hear at MCAD have in place, I use those at other places. So like the checklists that you have, some of those planning documents are just hugely important. So even if you're not the week before classes, I know it's probably too late for this semester, but if you're jumping into online learning summer and fall, just really working ahead of time on those planning documents and doing the backwards course design really helps. And then other tips, I would say some of the biggest things that I've noticed, and I've been teaching online since like 2018 and teaching in person as well. But some of the things that I've noticed with folks who are just jumping into online learning is length of time in videos, which if you have a synchronous meeting, that's a different thing than if you have tutorial videos. And any tutorial video that's longer than like 15 minutes is a little bit too long. So I really watch the time when I'm trying to do lessons, and I will chunk things up into smaller videos. It just helps me, well, it helps the students, number one, because they don't see like a hour-and-a-half lesson. They'll see little chunks of links that they could choose to click on or whatever. And then it also helps me understand what they're watching. So I had a web design class this semester with undergraduates where I had chunked up all of these different things into smaller videos. And they kept having questions about some like troubleshooting things. But then I found out they weren't watching the troubleshooting videos that I put together. So it was like, oh, well, I'm glad I chunked these up into smaller videos because I can literally see that 5 people have watched this and I have 25 people in my class and I have 20 questions. So that's helpful, I think, to you as well as the instructors to have those little chunks of videos. And if you're not chunking your videos up, it's really nice. YouTube lets you do this. You can use timestamps. It's really easy. I'm sure the online learning folks can tell you all about it. If you use timestamps, then students can easily go through your content. And so it helps them. Let's say you have a student who knows a lot of stuff in the class. They might not want to watch the whole video, but then they'll catch the parts that they don't know. And if you have a student who doesn't really get something, they can go back to that timestamp of the thing that they didn't really get. Or if you have chunks of videos, they can go to that chunk for the thing they didn't understand and watch it over and over again. And then beyond the chunking or timestamping videos, I think even if you're doing an online class where almost everything happens in a synchronous meeting, having materials online for students is huge. So in addition to the online teaching, I was teaching in person in like from 2016 up until 2020. Sure. And I did like the hybrid thing where it's like, okay, well, I gave a lecture in class. I don't want to repeat myself to the 5 students who weren't here. So why not just record what I'm doing? If you're giving lectures synchronously, you could ask your students for permission to record the lectures and then post them up online. And not only does that help the students who may have missed the lecture, it helps students, again, who need a little extra help. They can rewatch portions of your lecture over and over again. And you could even use that lecture in the future for online content as well. So I think it just makes everybody's lives easier, providing as much information online as possible.
I feel like I'm biased here, but I 100% agree with you. Kind of taking the time to provide, I really love that. Taking the time before class starts to kind of give students access to the materials you're going to be talking about during the synchronous session, or even just outlining what to expect, what's covered, what's coming up in this live session, I think can really help. It really helps students kind of get into the lesson and feel more confident participating. Perfect. Well, Calee, I want to thank you very, very much for taking the time, especially at the end of the semester when everything is the most hectic with grading and everything else that could possibly go wrong at the end of the semester. I want to thank you very, very much for chatting with me, giving us some information, talking a little bit more about your course, and giving us amazing advice for designing our online courses or virtual courses.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for the invite. I hope that some of this advice is useful, and if not, give me some feedback. Maybe I could learn some things too.